Perfect. We'll just kick on. So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning and welcome to our first ever digital surgery webinar. Today we're going to be focusing on how to use video for the ultimate brand optimization. So to give you a quick introduction, if you haven't been to digital surgery, because it's our first one today, digital surgery is a new platform and knowledge hub which is set up for sharing unique insight from thought leaders and experts. Our mission is to teach and provide marketing professionals with practical knowledge and expertise in the morning that you can then start actioning in the afternoon. So my name's Louise and I'm an SEO account manager at Celesti. As I just mentioned, today's webinar is going to be focusing on video. And we're actually joined by Ollie, who's the co-founder and creative director at Careful Media, and then Justine, who's the EMEA video editing lead at Twitter. Hi to you both. So I know you're both on mute in a minute, but we'll come back to you. So I know quite a lot of you will probably be familiar with the webinar setup, but just to give you a bit of a reminder. So if you've got any questions at all throughout the talk, then please just pop them in the Q&A tab, which is just at the bottom of your screen. You'll see it there. Each chat is going to last about 15 minutes, the presentations. And then at the end of both of the talks, we're going to have the Q&As there. So when you ask your question, if you just let us know which guest you kind of want us to ask that question to, whether it will be Ollie or Justine, we can then ask the relevant question, relevant speaker at the end. We're going to share obviously the presentations with you afterwards, including any relevant notes. So don't worry if you don't write all that down. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce you first to Ollie from Careful Media, and he's going to be discussing how to use video in your B2B marketing, the user journey.
Cool, thanks Louise. Right, seamlessly, I should be able to share my screen with you. There we go. And there we go. Should hopefully, Louise, is that all right?
Yeah, we're all good. Just 2 secs. We've got the top of your Chrome bar, but
yeah, I don't think I can get rid of that.
No, that's fine. If not, all good. Just thought I'd let you know. Perfect.
You have a little bit of insight into my life there.
We like to see all the bookmarks.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the way Chrome presents.
No worries. Okay,
I'm going to rattle through this. There is an awful lot to get through in 15 minutes, so I'm sorry if I talk quite quickly, and hopefully I can pick up any questions in a Q&A, but also I'm happy to take anything offline after and answer any questions too. So I'm Ollie Law, I'm the Creative Director for Careful Media, and essentially what I'm going to do is focus on 3 main types of video content and how they can be integrated into your marketing or your client's marketing. So the first thing I would say is that one of the overriding factors that comes through when we get a client come to us, certainly for the first time, is they know that video works, they just don't know how to make it as effective as possible. So what my goal is in this presentation really is to help you understand the underlying psychology and the questions that you can ask yourself that will help inform the creative direction, content and narrative. So if we look at I won't say typical, but a potential user journey here, probably quite familiar. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on these 3 products, if you like, and how they differ, and the kind of questions you can ask yourself if you're thinking about these particular types of products. So this typical user journey, if you like, is, okay, social ad, we're looking to either gain brand awareness or we're looking to attract an audience through to a landing page or a home page or even a product page. Secondly, brand film typically sits within a home page. And then thirdly, a product explainer, which probably everyone is quite familiar with. Really, one of the kind of factors that comes through when clients come to us is they want an explainer, but they also want to use it on social. Or they want a brand film, but they also want to go into detail about some of the products. What I'm going to focus on in this presentation is how to adjust that thinking, because by adjusting that thinking, you will optimize the results. And there are really 2 main questions to ask yourself whenever you're coming at new media. The first one is, how will you know when the video has been successful? Now, surprisingly, it doesn't matter how big or small the client is. When I ask this question, it's usually met with silence. I think one of the reasons for that is, coming back to my original point, is that clients know that video works. They just haven't thought about defining what works means. Some of the typical examples you might get are, if we're looking at goals here, are to increase conversions. It might be to reduce bounce rates. It might be to gain brand awareness. It might be to qualify leads. So an example recently for a charity was that the number of inquiries they were getting was good, but the quality of them was poor. So actually, conversely, they wanted to reduce the number of inquiries to reduce the burden, but those inquiries be of a better quality. You might want to create or shift brand perception, or even shift public opinion. This question is really important because it helps us define the whole creative narrative and what we're actually going to be doing in terms of content for the piece to optimize the goal and the outcome. Second question, what is your audience's intention? So what we mean by intention really here is, why have I started to watch this video? What we're really looking to do here is to get into the head of our audience, understand why they are spending their time watching this, what's their motivation, what's their challenge or opportunity. And they're really just two sides of the same coin, really. Either it's a problem or an opportunity, but really it's the same summation of the same thing. They're trying to do something. And what we want to understand is, what is that something? What are they hoping to gain by watching the video? And then in terms of informing the creative, what do they need to hear, see, and most importantly, feel in order for them to take the next step? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through those three examples that I showed you at the beginning, the product explainer, social ad, and brand film, and just look a little bit more in detail at those three and just give you some ideas and some questions to have a think about. So if we start with the probably more classic explainer, and we look in relationship to those two questions which I posed at the beginning. So how will you know the video has been successful? And what is your audience's intention? We can help to then inform what the narrative could be. So let's take increased contacts. So you've got a product page and you're looking to increase the number of, say, product demos or contacts. The intention then is really, if you think about someone coming into that page, let's take a typical example of scheduling software. I might have looked at 5 other sites. I might be looking at 5 other sites. So my intention at the very beginning of that process is, what is this software doing that's solving my problem? Is this relating to me? Do I feel like this is worth my time exploring in more detail? And this is a really key point here, because video doesn't replace text and image. And that seems like a really obvious thing to say, but sometimes clients come into it thinking it's some kind of panacea, that it's going to produce these magical results. In reality, the kind of framing we're looking at is, what can video do that text and images can't do? How can it complement those? So one of the goals might be that someone watches the video, they get excited, and then they read more into the product detail, which gets them even more excited. But what the video has done is it's given them the impetus to do that. So as a narrative, and there's many different ways you can go about this, but I'm just going to pick a more classic example in terms of a narrative flow. It could be, first few seconds of the video, what is it that relates to me about this? Can you identify with why I'm here? What is it I'm trying to solve? What opportunity am I trying to realize? I want to feel like you know and understand my position at the moment. Secondly, what's your promise? So you've identified my problem, or you've realized there's an opportunity that I want to take advantage of. What's your promise in terms of me being able to do that? These first two parts are very emotional. So they're all about emotion. So it might be, sorry, Siri trying to talk to me. It might be frustration about something, or a real excitement about realizing an opportunity. And then the promise builds on that. And then the second part of that animation is all about logic. So you've given me the what, if you like. So what my problem is, what your promise is. Now give me the how. So how can I believe that that promise you've just given me is true? There's some stats at the end, which I'll give you as well, but it's worth mentioning at this point that 140 words equates to 1 minute of animation, which is not much, or film. So what we're really trying to do is to engage that excitement, just give them enough for them to have the impetus to take the next action, but not so much that they then drop off and they get bored. So we're looking to optimize that narrative. Second one, if we look at homepage. So typically we would call this a brand film, although you may know it under different names. Yeah, again, if we go back to the success criteria and the intention, we can ask those same questions of this. So the success criteria could be quite a hard target. So it's that we want to drive more traffic to a product page or to a contact page, but it also could be quite a soft target. So it might be that we just want the audience to feel good about the brand, feel aligned with the brand. So if we look at intention then, why is someone watching a brand film? Why would they bother watching a brand film? Well, it might be because they want to establish if this is the type of company they can buy into. Do your values and intentions align with theirs? Do they get excited by the thought of working with you? So some questions that you can ask in terms of helping to build that narrative flow could be, what are your values and how do they align with your audience? What are your principles? From an audience perspective, I might be asking myself these questions. How much do I trust you're the type of company I'd like to work with? What kind of language do you speak? Does it feel the same as mine? If you're quite a quirky brand, maybe I'm attracted to that. If you're very corporate, maybe I'm attracted to that. Does it feel like it fits? I keep harking back to emotion, but it is so key in driving the goal that you want, that it's so important to identify what those emotions are and how you can relate that to your audience. And does it excite me to the possibilities of working with you? If the goal of the homepage video, if you were to take an A/B test on Optimize and you were to take one page where it's got no brand video and then a page where it's got the brand video, you would expect to see a better outcome. So you can reverse engineer that thinking and think, okay, so the page without the brand video, what are they not getting? Because if the page with the brand video is producing better results, then what is it about that brand video that is doing that? And you can then start to unpick the answers to that to build the narrative flow out. And then finally, probably the most interesting one, which I know Justine is certainly going to touch on with this in much more detail than I can go into here, but social posts. I don't know if you're like me, but generally speaking, I'm on social for a distraction more than anything else. Not necessarily because I haven't got anything to do, but just because it's a distraction from the things that I need to do. And I would say that's probably true of most of us. So actually my intention with social is to be distracted. I haven't, unlike a brand film or an explainer, I haven't really got a purpose as such. I'm just looking for that distraction. So really, in terms of defining the success criteria, and of course it could be many things, but really what we're really summing this all up as is interaction. I'm looking for distraction and your success criteria is interaction. Of course, you can refine that further and say you're looking for X amount of leads through to the website, but it might similarly be quite a soft target, which is you're looking for brand awareness, and you might measure that in terms of the number of likes, shares, and posts. So this one in particular is probably most geared towards emotion. It's really all about emotion. So if we were to take a product, say for example, let's take the scheduling software just as an example here. It's going to have loads of features and benefits within that product. And those you're going to put across within an explainer. But for a social ad, what we're really looking to do is to pull out one particular part of that. What's the proposition, if you like? Maybe it's a particular feature or benefit. Maybe it's a core belief of the company that you put into the product as a whole. Maybe it's about trust, or it's about being genuine, or it's about work ethic, or it's about really believing about results, for example, and getting customer results. We really want to define a really clear proposition. What's the promise to the audience that's going to get them excited, that's going to evoke that interaction, essentially, with the audience. You can also split test these, so you might not necessarily know what that proposition is, or you might not know between all the features and benefits, you might not know which ones are going to relate most to the audience. And this is where social advertising can get really interesting, because you can start to test out those different propositions and you can see which ones are driving the most interactions. I'm a little bit short on time, so I'm going to just skip forward to the stats page. There's some really interesting stats that have been produced to do with video content. They're quite global, so you know, take these with a slight pinch of salt, because different types of media in different settings does relate differently to these stats. But for explainers, for example, if we take the 60% stat, 60% of viewers will stop watching the video after 2 minutes. So 140 words is 1 minute. So 280 words script, which still isn't that long, you're already going to start losing the audience. What really they want to get from the video is the excitement, is the reason to investigate further. What they don't want from the video typically is a whole explanation of something. Some other interesting stats that will help inform your decisions around how you target media is the fact that 85% will watch Facebook without sound. So taking an explainer, which typically will be with sound and works best with sound, and just translating it straight onto social is not going to produce the optimum results. We need to be thinking about what's the platform, what's the success criteria, what's the intention. And that then is driving our decision about narrative, content, and also the way that we're actually producing the media. So is it text only? Is it with audio, and everything in between on that spectrum? I've run out of time, but hopefully that will give you a pretty good idea of maybe how to think about the media when you're approaching it, depending on what do you want it to achieve and what is the audience intention. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Ollie. That was really insightful, actually. Got a lot to go on from there. So next up, we've got Justine, who's going to be presenting her webinar discussing how to elevate your content through simplicity. Sorry, I just dropped a box there. Through simplicity. So Ollie, are you able to switch? Oh, you're already the host, Justine, so you can start presenting. Perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you, Ollie.
Perfect. Thank you, Louise. Hi, everyone. I'm Justine. I'm Twitter's Art House EMEA video editing lead. And today I'm going to share some practical tips with you so that you can boost your campaign performance while remaining creative on mobile and on Twitter. So a lot of you probably already know how important the quality of the creative is to the success of a campaign. And it's really important we keep this in mind while we optimize and create content for social and for Twitter. And here's what we actually see on the platform. Videos that are optimized for mobile, for Twitter, drive lifts in keyword metrics. So you can see here purchase intent with 13 points, which is usually a tough metric to move. But with users choosing how much time they'll spend on mobile, they'll choose how much time they'll spend on Twitter. It's not always easy to capture their attention. And actually, attention spans are short in general. I don't know if you've heard that before, but human attention span is actually shorter than the one of a goldfish. And it's only 8 seconds, but on mobile, sorry, it's even shorter than that. There's always another entertainment option that is just a tap away, a scroll away, and think about the other applications, websites, and all of that. And let's not even talk about notifications. So there's a huge need for marketers to find new ways to capture attention. And whenever clients ask me, okay, so how do you capture attention to users, on Twitter? How do you optimize content for Twitter? There's probably a word that comes to my mind that would recap like the tips I'm going to share with you today, and that would be simplicity. And simplicity starts with being able to focus on a key single message. Oli has been touching on this a bit earlier. And, when you think about TV commercials, for example, you have time to fit in different elements like a storyline, comedy, for example. You have time to combine different elements. For in-feed ads, they're meant to be viewed quickly. They're meant to focus on a singular purpose. So try to find your purpose, think about it, stick with it, and do it well. Do not try to convey different messages within one video ad. And then with mobile video, there's also a huge sound off behavior that Oli also has mentioned. And actually on Twitter, it's more than 90% of our users that watch content without sound. So you can imagine how essential it is that you have a message that can be expressed without audio. That can be through different things. That can be through subtitles. You can use artful captions. That's really recommended, like captions living with the environment, playing with your video. And then that can be with visual messages. That will help you get your message across, because you want everyone to understand your message. So think about accessibility. And then also you want everyone to get your message, but at any time they're watching your content and anywhere they are. So obviously right now we're all stuck at home. We're not consuming content on the go like we used to before on the tube or other places. Hopefully that won't be forever. And even at home, we know that we just don't turn sound on. We talk to family at the same time while scrolling down our phones. We watch TV, we do all different sorts of things. And I'll now let you watch, hopefully the videos play well, but basically both versions of videos we've optimized with the team for different brands. And you can probably see what side of the feed will draw your attention best. I think it doesn't take a cinematographer to actually realize what will be most likely to drive better results on social, on Twitter, and what is really optimized for the feed and for your message to be understood. And then timings are also essential on Twitter. We know that the shorter it is, the better it is. And we think that all assets, all video ads should be under 15 seconds. So 15 seconds for all our main products, like promoted videos, video website cards, video carousel, and all of that. And then for pre-rolls, think about 6 seconds, because you want your content to be non-skippable so that people watch your video in its entirety. But then for all other products, 15 seconds is a safe guide that will help you grab attention quickly, and that will also help you just make your content memorable. If you now look at those 3 versions of the same video ad, the first one, we know it's from Verizon. We have the message here. Okay, it's $45 per line. The second one, we're getting there. Okay, Verizon, we have the message appearing here. And then the last one, hopefully it's not too hidden with Zoom, but it's kind of going forever, right? Imagine watching this on Twitter. Imagine watching this on your mobile. We would have probably all scrolled down by then, right? Without even knowing what advertiser it was, what the message was really. So this is another reason why we think that sweet spots for Twitter and for mobile are 6 to 15 seconds. We also know that there's a deep dive after 15 seconds on Twitter, so that's also why. We're not saying longer assets can't be used on the platform, but I think you do need to have a valid reason to use longer assets. That can be whenever you're reaching existing followers, because you know they already have an interest with your brand, right? They're already here trying to like watch your content, watch what you're doing. So you might get away with it and get good results with it, with longer assets in this situation. Whenever you have Serena Williams, for example, or the creator Zach King featured in your video ad, then again, you might get away with it because people want to see what those people are up to. They also have a large fan base, so you should have your video perform well anyway. And then whenever you're connecting to special occasions like Christmas, for example, if it's a Christmas video ad, or if you want to connect to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, then you know those moments are unique moments. So people are more likely to watch longer content. But I think it's important to keep in mind those 15 seconds for day-to-day campaigns, just as a reference, you know, and whenever you have a value to go above, just go for it. Whenever you do have a reason, I would also recommend to actually combine your longer asset with shorter versions of it so that you can tease it beforehand and then you can use another one to like keep the momentum as well. The other thing I would advise you to think about whenever you're working on video campaigns for mobile and Twitter is common sense. Try to think about your personal experience. Try to ask yourself some questions like, would I really want to engage with this content if I was to get it served on my mobile? Would I really watch it throughout? You know, all those kind of questions can be really helpful. And if you look at this video again here, try to guess the brand if you can. It might take a bit of time because it's not obvious here. So just take a moment if you want to try to guess. Okay, so if you've noticed it now, we do have a tiny little logo on the bottom right corner. We know it's from Amazon Prime. We know it now, but I'm sure you've realized it does take a long time to figure out who's advertising here. And this is why what we've done, I'll show you what we've done with the team. We've optimized the assets for Amazon, and that's what we've done with it. Upfront branding with a logo throughout. It's quite straightforward. And then the message will appear here in a second. Yeah, here we go. We know what the message is, and we have an end card, sorry. The reason I'm showing you this today is because I just want to encourage you to not be afraid of going big with branding. Branding does not impact negatively. And we actually strongly recommend having it at least for the first 3 seconds of your video and then throughout if you can. Branding can be done with like different things. So obviously the brand logo, but it can also be with your brand colors, with product shots, product photos, and all of that. And this will help you with ad recall and brand association. If we look at, okay, where should I place my logo in the frame, you know? Obviously you have to take into consideration your own video. If the frame is too busy somewhere, then obviously avoid it. But in general, like we have a lot of studies that showed us that the top left corner, as this video ad for Slack, is actually where it performs the highest. Bottom corners are really not recommended because they could be hidden by your platform with the timer we have and then the skip this ad button. And then top right corner performs well, but we know the left side performs higher. And when you think about it, think about common sense here again. Think about, you know, in English, we read from left to right. So this is the first thing we will look at. And this is probably also why it performs the highest over here. And if you look at this traditional envelope here, you will kind of see that top left corner is where we actually have who's the message coming from again, right? And then on the lower middle of the frame, you have who the message is for, what the message is really. So with the team, we decided to like look at campaigns that performed really high on the platform and try to see like, we're not saying that those boxes are fitted all the time. That's not the case, but we're just thinking that there's definitely a trend of like having who the message is coming from, so the brand logo over there, and then what the message is, so like with the website link, with a call to action, or with the product, like kind of like around the lower middle of the frame. So keep this in mind if you want as a guide or reference. That can be helpful because again, that's where we start looking at. So those golden rules I've just shared with you are definitely meant to be guides, references, not boxes you have to tick for each and every campaigns. But I do believe that to go above, to be creative and to break the rules, really, you have to understand what the rules are. So hopefully that will help you for that. And now I would really invite you to like think about the latest campaign you've worked on. Think about the latest video your brand has been using for a campaign. And think about what you've done well, what you would probably change with our conversation today with Oli and with myself, and that might be helpful. And before I leave you before the Q&A, I just want to quickly introduce you to one of our latest innovations at Twitter. They're called fleets. You might have already experienced with it or seen some of it, but they're what other platforms call stories. And the reason they're really important to Twitter is because Twitter's mission is really to help people, help all of us see and share what's happening. And we've seen on some pieces of studies that there is sometimes a psychological barrier before brands or individual people publish a tweet on the platform. And that can be because they're thinking of, the number of likes they're going to get, number of retweets, of comments. And with fleets, they disappear after 24 hours. You don't have likes, you don't have retweets. And there are different things you can do with it. You can repost the tweets if you'd like, without having to like take an ugly screenshot and just post it. You can record video, you can post photos, share some text, for example. And let's look at what some brands have been doing recently. So Budweiser is reposting a tweet they've used before, as you can see, telling us to get a beer. Food Network here is reposting a poll they've done and commenting on it. And then Uber is reminding us to wear masks and that they're essential in 2020. And then I'm not sure you can see the last bit, but it's HBO experimenting with the feature and comparing it to Zendaya. So this is it for me today. Thanks for joining us. And I think we'll move to the Q&A with Louise now.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Justine. I have to say it's quite shocking about the goldfish attention span, I have to say. Perfect. So thank you for everyone who popped in a couple of questions. I've just got a few to run through with you both. Ollie, I don't know whether you want to turn your camera on. And I'm perfect. So again, yeah, thank you both for your chats. So in terms of questions, so someone submitted a question saying, should they look to create user personas for their videos? And that's directed obviously towards you, Ollie.
Yeah, 100%. So I didn't really have much time to touch on audience. This is another area that is of absolute vital importance because one of the processes we go through with discovery, for example, is trying to profile audiences and understand which audiences are most likely to respond positively. If you're in the same way that if you're trying to make an explainer work on social, it's the same really when you're approaching audiences. So if you're trying to write a narrative and create content that's going to speak to everyone, it's going to be far less effective than narrative which is really speaking to a very particular type of audience. So yeah, profiling your audiences and understanding what makes them tick is incredibly helpful to being able to design that narrative.
Yeah, and one of the perfect things with it as well is, for you are creating those personas, you can use them for video, but they can also translate obviously to your website through content and everything like that. So you'll get that multiple use from them, really, won't you?
Yeah.
And then another question for you, Justine. So obviously with the attention span of the goldfish, we've had a question in. So do you think attention span will kind of continue to lessen? Because it has been a downward trend, hasn't it? So.
Yeah, I mean, like I haven't seen studies on this yet, like on predictions for the future, but I do think it will probably be the case, you know. We might even, like, for now we're recommending 15 seconds and 6 seconds on Twitter, but with a lot of things like, you know, being created and us like discovering more and more, like it might be even shorter in the long term. So we'll keep an eye on that and make sure we're updating our best practices. But yeah, I don't really see like a reason why it would actually be longer than what it is currently.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And then touching on obviously the length of the videos and everything, Ollie, I know you mentioned 280 words was obviously translates to about to a 2-minute script. Would you ever recommend to a client, obviously, have you had many clients come on where you've recommended a video longer than 2 minutes, or you've produced one that's longer than 2 minutes?
Yeah, so it all depends on audience appetite for it, really. I mean, if the content is interesting and it's engaging, it can kind of be as long as it needs to be, really. There is some interesting data. I can't pull the stat out of my head, but long form media actually can perform really well in certain situations. If it really ties back to the point I was trying to make around audience intention. So if I'm in the frame of mind where I'm very quickly trying to establish if this piece of software is right for me, then producing something that's 10 minutes is just not going to fulfill that goal. I want to very quickly know if this is right for me. If it's on social, as Justine said, it's a distraction. So I'm probably not going to watch something very long form unless it is intensely interesting to me. So say, I don't know, I was following some celebrity and they were somehow tied into a brand that I was interested in. Then I might be more engaged by that content and I might watch that for longer. But again, need to understand what the intention is and who the audience are. But yeah, there's definitely instances. I think we've got one on our About Us page, which is 3 or 4 minutes long. That tells our brand story and it works really, really well. But it's quite far down the pecking order, if you like. You know, they're quite engaged by the brand at that point, so they're willing to spend and invest that time learning a bit more.
They want to know about you then, don't they? And they, yeah, like you said, they'll spend that time there. So that's a good kind of explanation there. I've got a question probably for both of you actually as well that's come in. A couple of them, well, the two we can kind of merge together, both relating to tools. So we've got one question. So what tools can you recommend to produce decent content without breaking the bank? And then another one, so do you have any video creation tools that you could kind of recommend? So whoever wants to jump on that one first.
I'll let Justine go.
Cool. I would say, so personally, I definitely recommend everything Adobe, really. That's what we use a lot within the team, like to edit content, Adobe Premiere Pro, Adobe After Effects. But I know there's a lot of other mobile video editing tools that are actually really good. I can't have, I can't remember the names of them right now, but I'm happy to follow up with you all after the webinar. But I know there are some that are, like, depending on what you need, quite easy to use and quite basic, and some that are way more technical for like other needs that you might have, and they're both free. So I'm happy to share them with you after the webinar if you'd like.
Perfect. Yeah, and just let us know and we can kind of attach that in, because we're going to be sending out the slide deck, so we can put that at the end of the slide deck presentation. So
great.
I don't know whether you've got anything, Ollie, that you kind of use day to day.
Well, we do, but it's all part of the Adobe suite mostly. Yeah. So, in Design, Illustrator, After Effects. We also use Cinema 4D, Final Cut Pro X. Some of the team use Premiere Pro. and Logic for sound. Do I know of any kind of cheap tools? I don't. If you were doing self-shooting, the iPhone 12 Pro is ridiculously good at doing 4K video, so that's an option. And I think Apple still have a basic editor that you can use. Some companies opt for there's kind of companies like, I think it's called Scribe or Scribble or something like that, which is like a whiteboard animation creator. Personally, from our perspective, it kind of would lack two things really. One, any distinction. It's just going to feel like everyone else's whiteboard animation. And secondly, unless you really know what you're doing in terms of narrative flow, there was a really interesting study recently to do with production value versus narrative, and narrative is way more important than production value. So if there was anything to invest your time in, it's learning how to do a proper, interesting, engaging narrative flow, because it will make a massive difference over any kind of piece of software you use.
Making sure that messaging's right and everything. And then I think we've got, I mean, again, to both of you, and this is quite a nice one to kind of finish on, any predictions for 2021? So looking out, you know, any trends, particularly obviously with you, Justine, and Twitter, what kind of innovations you've got the fleets, is there anything else coming up there? And then obviously more of a general kind of video scope, what, you know, are the trends that are going to kind of emerge out of 2021, if you think there are going to be any?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I would say look out for many more GIFs appearing on your social feeds. So GIFs are essentially looping videos. We did some testing with GIFs compared to slightly longer form media, and they are highly, highly engaging. What's great about them is that they capture attention the first time, but because they loop, they just keep going round and round and round. So if someone is also engaging or commenting with the copy, then you're getting that message kind of over and over and over again. What's also good about GIFs is they're relatively low cost to produce, depending on kind of what concept you come up with, which means that you've got the option then to test different propositions. So you can kind of pitch different propositions against each other, and that can help refine your marketing message.
Yeah, I think on the Twitter side, I actually have to agree around GIFs. That's actually something a lot of advertisers are like turning to instead. You know, some advertisers that were using a lot of like still images, just because we know that videos and animated GIFs perform much better on the platform. So this is really something we're seeing that it's being used more and more. And then on Twitter as well, with the fleets, there are other innovations and focus for 2021. So I don't know if some of you have heard of that, but video carousels are back on the platform. So it's like using different videos for like the same campaign, and that you can just scroll, and basically where you would have like a message per video for the campaign. So that will be a big focus, and I think something that advertisers have been waiting for a long time on Twitter, because we had it before and it's just been improved right now. So yeah, I think that'll be a big one as well.
Yeah, definitely with the GIFs. I sometimes find myself watching them over and over again and not even realizing that they're replaying or something, or loving them that much. Perfect. Well, I think that kind of ends the Q&A, unless anyone has obviously got any more questions. If you do have any questions that kind of pop into your head, you know, later on today or anything like that, then just feel free to pop us an email, and obviously we'll happily kind of answer those. So we just want to say thank you all so much for attending, and thank you to Justine and Ollie for both doing those presentations. They were really insightful, really helpful information on the videos there. So as I said, at the end of the webinar, you'll obviously receive an email with the slides on there, and Justine will try and pop in, we'll get you to just pop in some kind of video recommendations if you've got any. And then what we're going to do at the end of the webinar is you'll just have a small feedback survey, and if you could let us know any future topics that you might want us to cover, that would be brilliant. As we said, this is our first digital surgery webinar, so any ideas for brands, marketing techniques or speakers. If you want to come on, then just let us know, because we'll be happy, and we're putting together our schedule. Also head over to LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter to give us a follow at The Digital Surgery, and you can get in contact with us there as well. And then, yeah, like I said, you'll get a presentation from slides from today and any relevant information. And thank you both for your time today, as I mentioned, and thank you all for joining. So, see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.